Coming up, big things brewing in Terre Haute. Plans underway on a highly anticipated casino, and construction continues on a long talked about convention center. Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce President Kristen Craig is here with details on the potential impact and what's next for Vigo County and the Wabash Valley. Plus, the explosion of technology has put a strain on energy use at a vital resource for nearly every business on the planet, data centers. Co-owner and president Alex Carroll of Lifeline Data Centers is here to talk about a new patented technology that he says can help combat high energy consumption needs. And the holidays, the perfect time to try some iconic Hoosier eats like sugar cream pie, or maybe a piping hot tenderloin, or Indiana's signature wine, Traminette, that is grown and served at over half of the state's wineries. Yelp's Brittany Smith will take us on a statewide tour in this month's Trendiana segment. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. Well, two big projects expected to bring a new source of tourism and pride to downtown Terre Haute, and economic impact as well. A new convention center will be able to accommodate 1,000 people or more for events, and will also be the home of the new Larry Bird Museum. Plus, developers are looking at a December 2nd deadline to submit proposals to the Indiana Gaming Commission to build a new casino, now that voters in Vigo County have given that the green light. Here with more on the projects and more, a new community plan for Terre Haute. Pleased to be joined by Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce President Kristen Craig. And Kristen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
I should say the first female president, right?
That is true.
Of the Terre Haute Chamber ever. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Lots we can talk about.
Yes.
A lot of people have been talking about the casino. I mentioned the December 2 deadline for proposals. Spectacle Entertainment expected potentially to be maybe that only applicant there. What's the timeline on a new casino?
So as soon as the Indiana Gaming Commission signs off on it and approves the operator, I know that especially the operator you mentioned is anxious to get started on the project. So I think we'll have something by the end of 2021.
Talk about the impact. There's been a lot of buzz about it, certainly over in the western part of the state and really around the state. What, in your view, is the economic impact potential of the new casino?
Sure. So the big thing is just the construction project itself, first and foremost. I mean, we're talking about $100 to $150 million construction project, tons of construction workers. Then, and once the casino is actually built, we're talking about increased property tax revenue, increased gaming tax revenue, food and beverage tax revenue, all sorts of different things are going to feed into the local economy, plus associated development. We're talking about hotels, restaurants, retail, all sorts of things.
A site selected for sure. I know a lot of talk about the east
Depends
side.
on the operator.
Yeah.
I mean, probably east side, but depends on the operator.
All right, let's go from the east side to downtown.
Yeah.
Because there's beginning to be some real momentum downtown. A convention center has been talked about for a long time. Groundbroken in September.
Yeah.
That would come with a new hotel as well. Give us
Correct.
the status on the new convention center.
Right, new hotel, new parking garage, just massive development right along Wabash Avenue. So it will really change the face of downtown. It'll be able to house 1,000 people in the convention center. That'll be an amazing tourism draw for downtown Terre Haute and really the West Central Indiana region as well.
And then nearby Holman Center undergoing a facelift as well.
Yeah.
And I know you talk about 9 museums and the new History Center, the latest addition there, being in close proximity. The intent, as I understand it, is to build kind of a tourism hub, right?
Absolutely. Terre Haute has always kind of had a strong tourism draw that a lot of people aren't aware of. I think this will just really solidify that and give us the convention center and with Holman Center just awesome opportunities to host some pretty large groups in our area.
And a big event this weekend, the NCAA Division I Cross Country Finals being hosted again in Terre Haute, so that a big draw as well. The river, a lot of communities around the state and around the country really trying to leverage the river. What are plans there or potential there along the Wabash River?
It's funny, we did a community planning process earlier this year. One of the biggest things we heard about is people want us to develop the river. So really trying to make those plans happen for Riverwalk, expanded parks, really just capitalizing on that asset.
I've always looked at Terre Haute as one of the biggest assets is education,
Yeah,
higher
absolutely.
education. You've got Indiana State, Rose-Hulman, top private engineering school in the country, St. Mary of the Woods, Ivy Tech.
Yep.
You can go on down the list. As you look at the ability, the potential that those institutions have, what is that for economic development?
You know, they're our biggest resource in terms of just talent. I mean, think about the individuals coming out of those institutions. I mean, these are top-notch individuals. So connecting them to the local community, keeping them here, them returning, you know, that's the biggest potential that I see.
What is it going to take for it all to come together? Because I think Terre Haute has for a long time had a lot of potential. There've been some tough shots with Pfizer and some of the other, you know,
Right.
Sony cutting back and those types of things. But there are a lot of things that are kind of a lot of pieces that are out there now. What's it going to take to bring this full circle?
You know, really connecting those pieces, the business community. You know, I'm a little bit partial, but I think the Chamber's really stepped up in the last couple of years to be a leader in what's happening, bringing that together with higher education, all of those resources that I talked about. That's really going to be the way we make our community move
I want to get
forward.
it in, only have 15 seconds, but regional.
Yes.
This is a big push around the state of Indiana. What's the scene in West Wabash Valley?
West Central 2025, 6-county regional initiative. We're really focusing in on what we need to develop our counties, broadband, trails, connectivity. These are all the big issues. I know they are happening around the state as well, but that's what we got to focus in on to be successful.
All right, Kristen Craig is the president of the Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce. Lots going on in Terre
Yes.
Haute and the Wabash Valley. Kristen, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, also this week, Eli Lilly and Company with some big news, announcing plans to invest $400 million in manufacturing facilities in Indianapolis. Those plans driven by increasing demand for Lilly's current medicines, and they also provide for additional manufacturing capacity for future medicines in the pipeline. The new investment will create nearly 100 high-wage jobs at the Lilly Technology Center campus. Money will be used to improve existing manufacturing facilities that make insulin, additional capacity for its growing portfolio of diabetes medicines, and initial capital investments for future medicines as well. Well, coming up next, the supply and demand side of the evolving world of high tech, how to ease the increasing amount of energy being used at data centers. We'll learn about an Indianapolis company that has developed technology that it says is already making a difference. It's time now to go inside innovation. Well, High Alpha has launched its newest portfolio company, Base, with the help of $2.6 million in seed funding from investors across the country. Base says it is the first software platform for executive assistants. It's a market largely overlooked by software providers and productivity tools to date. The Base CEO is officed in Greenville, South Carolina, but the company is being built remotely with employees here in Indianapolis and across the U.S. The funding round was led by Matchstick Ventures with participation from Revolution's Rise of the Rest Seed Fund, High Alpha Capital, and Slack Fund. Well, by the year 2025, it is estimated that data centers may be responsible for consuming, get this, 20% of all available electricity in the world. But Indiana's only locally owned and operated group of data centers thinks it has really found a way to help change that. Lifeline Data Centers awarded a new patent on technology which helps combat high energy consumption needs for data centers. And with more on that and how it can reduce energy burdens and maybe even help fight climate change, please be joined by the co-owner and president, Alex Carroll. Alex, as always, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
As we get into this, everybody hears about data centers. Most know what they do, but give us the description of really what these big data centers like Lifeline are all about.
Well, you know, I think what most people today understand when technology is they understand, well, I've got something called the cloud. I use the cloud. The data center is where the cloud actually physically lives.
Okay, good. That's a good description. And Lifeline Data Centers, which launched essentially early 2001.
Yep.
You've grown. Talk about your big operation is the former Eastgate Shopping Mall out on the east side of Indianapolis.
Yes, sir.
But you've got other locations as well.
Well, you know, we started down Henry Street by the Lucas Oil Stadium, right? And then we grew in 2008. We purchased the Eastgate facility, the old Eastgate facility, and we've grown that. And then a few years ago, we purchased another building up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and started building that project. We'll have that completed here in 2020 now. That's been had a little bit of a challenge because that's the first really commercially available data center to the business community at large that has an EMP shield built into it.
Yeah, talk about that. This again is in Fort Wayne, so
Yes.
Fort Wayne, Allen County are going to be a big operation. What is having that EMP shield? What does that bring?
The EMP effect, so Hollywood acts like, well, you know, an EMP is somebody gets 40 miles above the earth and sets off his nuclear bomb and zaps all the electronics. So that probably will never happen. But the sun actually throws solar flares just right that produce EMP effects. And that's really what you're protecting from. The more valuable data is now, you know, like your tax records, you know, who owns your deed, who this, that, and everything else, the more important it is to protect it from all natural disaster.
Yep. All right, let's talk about the energy usage of these data centers. Huge. Lifeline, you have patented technology that can address that issue. Talk about that.
Well, our patent, so we really focused on how to keep that computer turned on no matter what. Doesn't matter the storm or the event. We got to keep the thing turned on, number one. And then number two, how do we also keep it as energy efficient as possible? Mm-hmm. So what that really has allowed us to do, sir, is the most efficient data centers right now going are like in Iceland, the Pacific Northwest, areas like that. We're actually able to compete with those people now on a power efficiency level.
With this technology, very quickly, only have about 20 seconds left, but as you see growth opportunities, you see continued growth opportunities, perhaps with this patented technology?
Yeah, we see growth opportunities, but we also really believe that what we're seeing is the Midwest is becoming more, business is becoming more interested in the Midwest to bring its technology and set it.
All right, Alex Carroll, the co-owner and president of Lifeline Data Centers. New patented technologies helping to really help the industry. Alex, it's always great to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Well, an update on an Indiana technology company. To date, Indianapolis-based Demand Jump has raised more than $14 million in funding. It recently completed a $5.5 million round led by Georgia-based venture investment firm BIP Capital. Demand Jump, which provides a digital marketing platform, was recently honored with the Top Leadership Award at Powder Kegg's inaugural Indiana Breakout Tech Culture Awards. Still ahead, we celebrate the holidays by sampling some of Indiana's most iconic food and drink. We'll check out everything from Wix Pies in Huntington to Paw Paw Beer at Upland Brewing in Bloomington. It's this month's Trendiana segment. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. In Fort Wayne, more uncertainty around the proposed $440 million Electric Works mixed-use development project. Developers of that project, RTM Ventures, had asked for $23 million in advanced funding from its public financing partners, including the city of Fort Wayne. That request, though, was denied. RTM says that denial changes nothing with its plans, which they say they're going to move forward on. A new title for the leader of the University of Notre Dame's already thriving innovation and entrepreneurship program. An Illinois couple contributing $5 million to endow an associate provost position. The gift from John and Kathy Martin will allow Vice President Brian Ritchie to also hold the title of John and Kathy Martin Associate Provost for Innovation. Notre Dame's Idea Center has launched some 62 startup companies. 11 counties in southern Indiana will soon get an economic boost. The Indiana Uplands, a region that includes Bloomington, French Lick, and Bedford, has been named the state's third 21st century talent region, which is reserved for Hoosier communities working to attract, develop, and connect talent, working together to do that. Focus areas also include increasing the number of college graduates and narrowing the gap for disadvantaged across the region. Well, 2019 is quickly drawing to a close. State legislators looking ahead at priorities for the 2020 Indiana General Assembly. Here now with some perspective and a look at some of the top priorities when it comes to economic development. Pleased, as always, to be joined by Genova's Executive Managing Director, Larry Gigrich. Larry, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Gary.
As always, and I should say congratulations off the top. Named recently the Indiana Chamber's Volunteer of the Year.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Very noteworthy and worthy recognition. Okay, let's get to the top economic development topics. There are lots we can talk about. One of them, regional economic development and these so-called regional innovation hubs.
Yeah, I think as you look at businesses and in particular look at communities, it's done on a regional basis today, as we all know. And really it's about pursuing talent. And investments in quality of place are tied very closely to talent attraction and retention. So regional innovation hubs is a way or a vehicle to help accomplish that goal.
Yeah, and it was introduced, I think, last year, went to a study committee. We'll be back at the State House this year. What are some examples of maybe some things that other communities around the country have done in that regard?
Yeah, there's a couple of really good examples. One would be in Oklahoma. They allowed a local option sales tax to be implemented in Oklahoma City called their MAPS program. For 25 plus years, they've invested in quality of place projects. And then the state of Texas also allowed a local option sales tax that could be used for quality of place and economic development projects. So there's a couple really good models out there to look at.
All right, here's an interesting one. Reduce or eliminate professional licensing requirements that hinder talent attraction for out-of-state candidates. Doesn't sound real exciting, but it's kind of a hot button issue.
It is, especially in a world where there's so many more professional, technical, and scientific jobs. And we need to eliminate all the barriers we can on licensing when people move here to make it easy. And there's been some really good examples, including Arizona, around the country. And Governor Holcomb, to his credit, he and his team are moving on this issue, but there's some things the legislature can do to really make a difference.
We talk so much about talent, and there are a number of issues around that, but as you look at issues at the State House that can address that and that talent attraction and the ability for any, there are more job openings than job seekers, how we get at that issue?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that are there. Certainly, the Next Level Jobs program has been a good start to identify high demand, high skilled jobs that also pay very well and coming up with pipeline development there. I think the other thing is continuing that dialogue between higher education and the business community to make sure that needs are being met and being met quickly, because it can take a while to catch up and we have to be very nimble in this economic environment.
Yeah, one more I'll throw at you, Larry, and that's the pursuit and implementation of a more diversified energy policy.
Yeah, I think as you look at the Midwest as a whole, we've been more reliant on coal to generate electricity, and our utilities have begun to move away from that to things that are more sustainable. But for the long term, we still have work to do there, and we need to make sure we have a reliable, diverse source of energy that is still cost effective for us to compete economically.
Yeah, looking ahead to 2020, crystal ball, how do you look at next year for economic development? A lot of talk about maybe a slowdown in the economy.
Yeah, I think there'll be some slowdown next summer just because of the presidential election year. We typically see that. But I will tell you, the momentum we have seen as a firm over the last 60 days has been really intense. And if there's any softening at all, it's just a little bit on the manufacturing side, but that's really it at this point.
All right, Larry Gigerich from Genovis, as always, some great perspective. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. Well, coming up next, something to tempt your taste buds as we head into the holiday season. From sugar cream pie to persimmon pulp to the tenderloin paradise known as Nick's Kitchen up in Huntington. Yelp's Brittany Smith is here, and with this month's Trendiana segment, she's in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge presented by Star Commercial Banking. There she is, and Alex Carroll even stayed to take part in some of the festivities. Our Social Media Lounge brought to you by Star Commercial Banking, Indiana born for Indiana business. Well, just in time for the holidays, we're looking at some of the really the most iconic eats from all over the state of Indiana. Everything from those famous breaded tenderloins to sweet desserts, maybe a few adult beverages as well. We've got them all laid out here. And let's get right to this month's Trendiana segment. Yelp's Midwest Regional Director Brittany Smith is here with a statewide tour. Brittany, is always welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for bringing these great treats, iconic Hoosier eats, and especially the holiday season. You can kind of use these as gifts and trades and all kinds of things.
It's great for a host gift. It's also a great way to show your family a little bit of a taste of Indiana while they're here.
All right, let's talk about iconic Hoosier eats. You've got to begin, I think, with the sugar cream pie.
Yes,
right?
That one is not a shocker. We had to narrow it down to 2 picks, though. So My Sugar Pie, located in Zionsville, and now in the Greenwood Mall as well. They are known for their beautiful sugar cream pies, as well as several other options that they offer. They will also ship. They've been featured on Oprah, Country Living, a beautiful business. Wix Pies is another classic. They just celebrated 75 years last month in September. Donated $1 of every pie. They're from Winchester, Indiana. Patented in 1962 for that recipe.
1962.
Yes, it's been around strong.
Good stuff. Sugar cream pie, great way to start. Beer in Indiana, craft beer and all kinds of cool beer concoctions are really popping up. Pawpaw beer.
Yes, so Pawpaw. If you're not
Yeah.
familiar with Pawpaws, it's a fruit. It's also known as the Indiana banana. And Upland, it is actually one of their most sought after beers. The Pawpaw beer, it is barrel aged, sour, fruited sour. They are so popular for it. And now they have so many locations throughout the state that you can find it.
Yeah, growing business to be sure. How about Persimmon Pulp?
Yes.
Southern Indiana?
Another,
right?
yes. Mitchell, Indiana is most known for it. They actually have a festival each year for it, but you can find persimmon pulp frozen at places like Tuttle's Orchard. And once you get it, you can make wonderful desserts for the holidays.
Yep. Okay, we talked about sugar cream pie being so popular, obviously in the state. A close second, or maybe we'll say they're tied, breaded tenderloins.
Yes,
Everybody thinks
yes,
tenderloin when
yeah.
they think Indiana.
And if we were to narrow it down to one iconic spot, it'd be Nick's Kitchen in Huntington, Indiana. It's a great diner vibe for it. And the beautiful thing about breaded tenderloins is you can look it up on Yelp anywhere in the state, and you're probably going to find a breaded tenderloin not too far away.
Very good. Okay, who knew, you knew, of course, that the state has a signature wine.
Yes,
Traminette, right?
That's right. It's a grape that grows really well in the Midwest with our cold winters. And it's also fruity and great crowd pleaser. So Traminette from Oliver Winery is one of the many examples where you can find it and sold throughout the country as well.
Well, speaking of that,
Yes.
the business there at Oliver, they've really been blowing
Definitely.
up. Everybody sees them on 37 there down in
Yeah.
Bloomington, but they were all over the
Now,
country.
yeah, you can be in Texas, Ohio, and you're going to find it on the shelves. So even if you're traveling, visiting family, you can find it.
Yep. Another business that is growing in the drink culture is the craft brewing
Yes.
segment. Zombie Deaths from Three Floyds, that's up in Munster in
Yes.
Northwest Indiana.
Definitely has that cult following, and people love to do craft beer shares around the holidays, bringing stuff from different states. This one, now that they've increased the productions, it's easier to find it, and now you can take it for your holidays, easier than ever.
That's good. And again, from a business standpoint, the craft brewing industry
gosh,
has
yes.
just exploded. I think Three Floyds, the #1 brewer by volume. Sun King, #2
Yes.
here in Indianapolis. It's really become big business around
Yeah,
the state.
it's beautiful to see even smaller towns throughout Indiana now popping up with their
Yes.
own breweries, and what's that's even done for their main streets. It's really exciting.
Brittany Smith from Yelp, as always, a great tour around the state of Indiana. Iconic Hoosier Eats. Happy Thanksgiving
Likewise,
to
Gary.
you coming up next week. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Well, for more than 2 decades, Inside Indiana Business has been your business news source, also a resource for the people, products, and places, as well as the issues shaping the Indiana economy. And as we continue to provide you with Indiana business news and information when you want it, where you want it, and how you want it, we want you to check out the new InsideIndianaBusiness.com. More video, more content, more ways to connect. It's all at the new InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Still ahead, big changes may be coming for NCAA student athletes. The organization has opened the door for student athletes to be compensated for the use of their likenesses. NCAA Chief Operating Officer Donald Remy is here to explain what's behind the move, also to break down next steps in making that plan come together. And IU Health makes a huge commitment, a $100 million commitment to make Indiana healthier. The new strategy, pool resources to combat where people live and lifestyle habits to a more holistic approach to health care. IU Health CEO Dennis Murphy is in our Business of Health segment with more on that. Stay with us. Well, 3 words, name, image, likeness, could soon be changing the landscape of intercollegiate athletics, in particular at the Division I level of the NCAA. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill.
Thanks, Gary. Well, not long after the state of California passed into law legislation that will allow college athletes to profit from those 3 words, name, image, likeness, the Indianapolis-based NCAA said it too would venture down that path. Joining us today to offer the NCAA's perspective and what it could mean is the association's Chief Operating Officer, Don Remy. Don, welcome to the program.
Bill, thank you for inviting me.
I think, first of all, the NCAA, this was not a reactionary move to California. The NCAA has been looking at the issue of name, image, likeness, and athletes being able to use that for some time.
Well, you know, the modernization of the rules that apply to the student athletes is so much more than name, image, and likeness, and you're right. The association in the higher education environment continually improves the student athlete experience, and so has focused on this question of how do we make that experience the best experience possible for the student athletes, whether we're changing opportunities for scholarships or dealing with issues of name, image, and likeness. The association's committed to making those changes.
And some people would say, well, this will be the end of college athletics as we know it. It's probably not that dire a circumstance. You're just trying to embrace the new world.
Well, indeed, as I said, we're modernizing the rules. It's something that the association is committed to doing. And here, as we look at this question, how student athletes may benefit from the use of their name, image, and likeness, we look at it through a prism of being associated with and connected to college sports.
Some people would think, okay, this is men's basketball, it's football, but Olympic athletes, and indeed, we were talking off the air, this could have implications throughout all three NCAA divisions.
Our membership's looking for a uniform system that can apply to Division I, to Division II, to Division III, based upon the idiosyncrasies and the challenges that might exist in those divisional structures, but certainly in a way that can provide our student athletes the greatest opportunities possible.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, Don, as you know as well as anybody, the NCAA, the disparity among institutions, their missions, even within divisions, especially Division I, I mean, it's pretty enormous. What they're doing at Valparaiso is not the same thing they're doing at Michigan, for instance.
Well, certainly there are differences in the schools. But as the membership looks at this question and how it can modernize its rules, how it can change the landscape in a way that betters the experience for student athletes, it recognizes the differences in those schools, the differences in the divisions, and we're looking at providing an opportunity for the divisions to build rules consistent with the structure of college sports, consistent with the world of higher education in a fashion that makes sense.
And core to the NCAA's initiative will be the fact that you want to maintain student athletes rather than university employees, for instance.
I'm glad that you said it that way. When the Board of Governors announced that the policy was changing to allow each of the divisions to change its rules, the board also set out some parameters within which those rules changes could occur and must occur. And one of those things is so that we have students competing against students, not students competing against paid professionals.
It's so important that, again, California has passed the legislation to go into effect in a couple of years. Florida, 22 other states considering legislation. But you can't have, this needs to be as much as it can, one size fits all. It can't be coming at it from 50 different state perspectives, correct?
That's absolutely right. The NCAA is best positioned to try to create a uniform system across all of the states. You don't want to have a system where Ohio State has different rules than Purdue, where IU has different rules than Michigan. You want to have a system that's uniform across the country, and that's what we're committed to putting together.
As quickly as we wrap up, what's next from the NCAA's process?
Our membership is committed to looking at its structure, to modernizing its rules, to making changes to make the student-athlete experience better, and it's going to do that from now through the end of time, but certainly on this issue of name, image, and likeness, before January 2021, you'll see changes in the NCAA.
All right, well, we appreciate the perspective.
Thank you,
Thanks
Bill.
for being on the program.
Appreciate it.
Gary, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, this week, IU Health announced that it is devoting $100 million to create a community impact investment fund designed to battle some of the underlying causes of Indiana's poor health outcomes. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta has more.
Thank you, Gary. Indiana ranks among the worst in the nation for obesity, smoking, and infant mortality. The underlying causes of these health issues can be elusive and hard to remedy, but often fall under the umbrella term social determinants of health. And that's where IU Health plans to spend the $100 million. Here to tell us more about this new investment is Dennis Murphy, President and CEO of IU Health. Thanks for coming to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We hear a lot about social determinants of health in the health world right now, but some people may not know what that term means. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so there are a broad array of things that determine your health besides your behaviors and your health status. So a good example is your educational attainment level. It can be your income, and even as dramatic as where you live. So here in Indianapolis, if you live at the north end of the Monon, your life expectancy is 20 years higher than if you live at the southern end of the Monon. And a lot of that has to do with what those neighborhoods, those environments look like. And so that's really where we're trying to have an impact, is really on these things that determine your health beyond just who is your doctor, where are you getting your care.
And IU Health could have put this money toward specific conditions like infant mortality, obesity, opioid abuse. Why direct it more broadly at this broad issue of social determinants of health?
Yeah, so we've seen the research that says about 70% of your health status is determined by these social determinants of health. And we think long term, if we really want Indiana to be a healthier place and to reduce the costs of care, we've got to get upstream and start to impact some of these social determinants. And this will take a while. These are big issues, but we need to start working on them.
And you've awarded the first 4 grants, a Healthy Families program in Indianapolis, a diversion center in Bloomington for opioid abuse, a neighborhood revitalization project in Muncie, and a program focused on spiritual care for socially isolated people with chronic health issues. We can't talk about all of them, we don't have the time, but is there one or two you'd like to highlight?
Well, maybe that last one you mentioned, our congregational partnerships, as I think about them, are really trying to do 2 things. One is take people who are socially isolated, because there's a lot of data that says those folks are some of the folks who really have bad health outcomes, and figuring out how do we engage with them and really make sure that they're getting the kind of care that they need. And we don't believe we can do that ourselves. So we think working through a whole set of congregations, and we're pretty ecumenical, we want everybody to be involved. And that kind of partnership will actually give us an entree to seeing those patients and working with those people to get better health care.
And this particular investment is new, but this is not a new effort at IU Health.
Yeah, you know, I go back to our founding over 100 years ago. We're a charitable organization, and we believe that our job is to improve the health of the communities we're in. And so this is really just a supplement. Today we provide over $700 million worth of community benefit, and that's charity care and a series of other community programs and helping Medicaid patients. This is really, again, an add-on to that to get upstream on some of these bigger health issues.
And only a few seconds left, but this, you mentioned, is ongoing, long-term. These things take time to change.
Yeah. Well, you know, we didn't get this way in a year, but I do believe this is the start of a very long-term commitment to have the impact we want on these kinds of issues, and you have to start somewhere. So this is our first major foray into this, but it won't be our last.
All right, Dennis, thanks so much for coming to the show, and we're excited to watch this fund grow and see what it does.
Well, thank you so much.
Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, coming up next, we head west to Indiana State University, where Sycamore alum, the school's first female president, is leading the charge to carve out a new identity for ISU. President Deborah Curtis joins us to share her vision on making the American dream thrive at the university. Well, Indiana State University says it is continuing to focus and align its curriculum with workforce needs of the state, something very important in our state. ISU's new packaging engineering technology program, one of 6 degree granting programs of its kind in the nation, the only one in Indiana. Plus, the master plan may transform ISU's athletic facilities into a sports district. In our Eye on Education segment this week, pleased to welcome back to the show President Deborah Curtis, who is here to talk about those and other initiatives on the Terre Haute campus. President Curtis is always welcome.
Thank you, Gary.
Lots we can talk about here. The American dream thrives at Indiana State University. That's kind of a focal point you've made. What does that mean to you?
Well, at Indiana State, it's part of our mission. Fully 50% of our students are first-generation college goers. A little bit more than that are Pell eligible, meaning low-income students. And so for these students, this is a pathway to an opportunity that's not been there and present in their family. So when we take a look at moving these students through their opportunities in Indiana State really means we're a part of building and rebuilding the middle class in this country.
You want to make, you talk about a metric that shows how you're doing. Social Mobility Index, CollegeNet comes out with those rankings. literally just hot off the presses, Indiana State, #1 in the state. Again.
We are. They review nationally higher ed institutions for the impact the institution has on the social and economic mobility of its graduates, and we were #1 in the state of Indiana 5 times out of the last 6 years.
Well, and that's, students as they leave the institution, where they go, what they do, it really is an indicator there.
It is.
Workforce alignment, such a huge issue in the state of Indiana. There are some specific programs I think a lot of people may not know at Indiana State that are really unique. Package engineering technology, one of only 6 programs like that in the country, the only one in the state of Indiana. The placement rate off the charts for that.
It is. It's essentially 100% placement rate, and the employers say to us, we need more. So sometimes it's important to help people understand what this is. These are young people who sit and use computer-assisted design to create the kind of packaging that all of our e-commerce is engaged in using to make sure I get my products from Amazon or whomever in a package that protects them. And this design work that they do is cutting-edge work.
Yeah, really making a name for ISU with that program. Another one is cyber criminology, security studies. Again, the job hiring prospects in those sectors are off the charts as well, and that's a big focus area.
Well, it's huge, but also I usually give the example, if you graduate from Indiana State 10 years ago with computer science as your field, your employer's probably saying, you know what, you need some cyber security. They're not saying you need a master's degree necessarily, but we work on graduate credits for folks out there who need that update because we know how important it is right now.
A lot going on physically on the campus as well. Recently released master plan for what the athletic facilities and sports district, if you will, could look like, which includes development along the Wabash River in downtown Terre Haute. Talk about that vision for athletics and what it's all about.
Well, truly, we've for a long time had a campus master plan, multiple presidents ago, and this campus is much different than it was years ago, but we didn't include athletic facilities in that visioning. So it was well past time to do that. And 3 categories of the vision really rose to the top for us is what could it look like to either enhance the football stadium where it is or to build one on campus, thus the sport district between 3rd and the River, where already our beautiful baseball stadium sits, but one of the other visions was to bring softball adjacent to that and then build a facility between. And then the third, which for us to be Missouri Valley participants, we're the only institution in the conference that doesn't have a basketball practice facility. And so that would be, the vision is for that to be between 3rd and the River as well.
Have time for one more question, and that is that connectivity between ISU, other institutions, Rose-Hulman, St. Mary of the Woods, Ivy Tech, and others in economic development. I know that's something that's being talked about now and really beginning to get some traction.
Well, the president's chancellor and the school superintendent and I are working together to develop a greater alliance to be able to do work with business in the Wabash Valley. So that's a goal. But we really believe for us it's going to reach throughout the state. I just like to wrap up by saying thanks and really say to folks, take a closer look at Indiana State.
Yeah. Making that sell, very good. President Deborah Curtis, a lot going on the ISU campus as an ISU grad. I'm happy to see it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, there are about 10,000 orthodontists in the U.S., and it's estimated they spend between $100,000 and $300,000 on equipment and supplies each year. Globally, the orthodontic supplies market, about a $3.4 billion sector, expected to grow to nearly $6 billion by 2023. And an Indianapolis orthodontist has launched what is possibly the world's first online marketplace for orthodontists. It is the subject of this month's Innovators with Dr. K. Dr. K, take it away.
Well, thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. We always talk about finding a need in the marketplace of a stagnant industry, and this procurement for orthodontists was very stagnant, and they found a way to really innovate with it. So I wanted to welcome the Chief Operating Officer, Nick Wangler. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
So we always start with, asking about the idea. Where'd the idea come from? There's a backstory here, as I understand.
There is, yeah. So Dr. Jeff Biggs, local orthodontist in Indianapolis, was just analyzing his business, and it was really a labor of love where he realized how tough and much time it spent for his staff person in charge of purchasing to research, purchase online products, emailing this supplier, calling this one. It really was a stagnant market. So we came to Developer Town, where I was working, and said I'd love to build an Amazon for orthodontics. And I said, that sounds like a horrible idea. I said, that's gonna be a lot of work. Suppliers, who knows if they'll play ball. Orthodontists are busy. But he won me over. I started talking to suppliers, started talking to orthodontists, and both sides have challenges in this process that they wanted to get figured out.
So how does it work?
Yeah.
Give our audience an idea
Sure,
of this platform.
Yeah, so I mean, it works the way that you would expect purchasing to work in 2000, almost 2020, right? So orthodontists can go to the website, see transparent pricing. They can order from multiple suppliers just with a few clicks. And this is something that seems pretty easy, but is actually complicated given the number of products that are in the market. So as an orthodontist or the staff person buying, they can just go to the website, read reviews from other orthodontists, make purchases, and it all works exactly how you would hope. Yeah.
And the potential market for this, as you look ahead, Nick?
Yeah, well, as was mentioned, the market's growing. It's a multi-billion-dollar market already, and in the U.S. is growing rapidly. For us, it's great because we're just laser focused on making that process easier for orthodontists.
Sure.
And we want that to remain free for them.
Yeah. And how do you make revenue yourselves?
Sure. Yeah. Well, to stay in business, we take a commission on any order that's placed. So it's no different than for suppliers how they would handle like a salesperson making a commission. So for us, we just take a small piece of that transaction.
Gotcha.
And just like a lot of marketplace businesses, it makes it easy for both sides.
Great. The challenges ahead?
Yeah.
What are some challenges you're facing?
Sure. Well, as always, there's two sides of this market. So we need to have attractive, great products for orthodontists on the platform. So that's the supply side. Demand side with the orthodontists. We have to have a website that works, functions, and has the products that they want. So for us, the biggest challenge is getting suppliers who are maybe more of an old guard. They're used to hiding pricing, maybe not being quite as innovative in the way that they sell, to be more open. Luckily, here in Indiana, TP Orthodontics, G&H Orthodontics, two great orthodontic manufacturers and suppliers who are a part of the program.
That's
great. So it's really getting the ones that are maybe a little bit more old school in their thinking to open up.
So those are your critical steps coming up, right?
That's
that's what you got to work on.
That's right.
That's fantastic. Well, as I do in each and every show with the innovators with Dr. K, we try to give Dr. K's prescriptions to try and help out. And so, you and I had talked, and I kind of came up with what I call the ABCs of growing and innovation. And the A stands for attract smart money. One of the things we talked about was right now you guys have been bootstrapping, working really hard. But you really want to start to raise some money, and sometimes the strategic partnership is the way to go. Working within the industry, which I know you said yourself, you're looking at that. The B stands for build a strong business process. And again, that's what we were just talking about, the challenge of working with these buyers and these suppliers, right? And back and forth. So you got to build that, that strong process there as well. And the C is, I think you're already working on that, is create a trusted brand. You got to get that brand recognition out there. Then I know you're doing it almost with the personal touch, which I think is fabulous. But I really think that's going to help you out as well. So
those are great.
Those are the ABCs. I think they'll help and going forward. And we wish you the best. But where can the audience find you, Nick?
Yeah, so orthodonticdetails.com.
Fantastic.
Website they can go to.
Orthodonticdetails.com. Sounds great. Nick, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Wish you all the best. Well, there you have it, Gary. A phenomenal business idea with some innovation in the orthodontic industry right here in Indiana. Back to you, Gary.
Coming up, our insiders are getting warmed up to sound off on Lilly's plans to invest some $400 million and add 100 jobs here in Indianapolis. The latest on the fight over the old GM stamping plant site and a lot more. There they are in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by Star Commercial Banking, Indiana born for Indiana business. Well, each week, a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective, to sound off on some of the state's top stories. This week, Eli Lilly and Company with the big plans, a $400 million plan to expand in Indy. Brian Bosma leaving the Indiana State House, the Indiana Legislature, and a lot more. And joining me this week are Kay Anand and Associates founder and principal Aubrey Anand. Also, Content by Carter president and CEO Cam Carter. And Ice Miller, partner in charge of client relations, Melissa Profit. And welcome one and all to the Insiders for another edition. As I mentioned off the top, Eli Lilly and Company with major news this week. $400 million investment, significant, obviously, nearly 100 high-paying jobs. For the size of the investment, 400 mil. I say only 100 jobs. They're important, but I think it's reflective of technology, automation, and a lot of things that are just part of the industry.
I absolutely agree with that. It's a wonderful investment by a wonderful corporate citizen, fabric of our community. And I do think that $400 million in capital, creating 100 high-paying jobs, those are very, very highly skilled jobs. I think it speaks to their investment in automation, perhaps robotics, AI, these other technologies that are going to require a very high skill set.
Yeah.
So we'll see a lot of capital investment. The ratio, almost $4 million in capital invested per job.
An announcement like this, Melissa, from any company, but especially Lilly, such an iconic a company, and everyone always wonders what's next, what's the future like for Lilly. I think when people see this kind of investment, they kind of maybe breathe a sigh of relief. It's a big news.
I think it's a complete sigh of relief. You're on your edge of your seat all the time wondering if they're going to be purchased, move, leave.
Right.
They not only announced that this is for current medicines that they have, future drugs that they have in the pipeline, and we know that they're here to stay for a while. And so I think that is significant. I thought it was also very interesting they made a comment about tax reform having a lot to do with making this decision. I really haven't seen many companies surprisingly give credit to tax reform for that, and they talked a lot about the number of U.S. jobs they have. So I think they're really proud to be here in the United States, and in particularly in Indiana.
Yeah, interesting point. I remember Dave Ricks being kind of on the stump for tax reform several years ago, talking about the need for that that could lead to expansion. Lilly, an iconic traditional company, if you will. On the flip side, young emerging companies beginning to pop up all over the state of Indiana, in particular here in central Indiana. High Alpha this week announced its latest spin-out company, Base. Aubrey, as you look at that company and what High Alpha is doing with spinning out so many new cool tech companies, a different vibe, if you will, in Indianapolis, but one that's important.
Yeah, I think it's very important. It's great to see High Alpha, what they're doing. I think this also resonates as Indy's become this echo chamber of technology innovation, not just companies, but also tech investments, right? So they've invested in companies like Xylo, Cured, and other big companies that have gone on to acquired by larger companies. So I think this investment fits within that portfolio, and which is very niche SaaS platform that I think will do great things.
Yeah. News from the State House this week, big news. Brian Bosma, the Speaker of the House, announcing he's stepping down, be leaving the State House.
Well, we went to law school together, so I've known the gentleman for a really long time. I'm 34 sessions since they're there since 1986. He has an amazing wealth of knowledge, institutional knowledge, networks, relationships. He is someone that was laser deep. Tackled many huge, important issues for our state, whether it was right to work or funding private vouchers. But I think there are a couple of other really important things that he has done. He was a real strong leader of his caucus, and he had the respect of all of his members. And I actually think this is the end of an important era for Marion County, because he's represented our interests very, very well, and he's been just an incredibly strong leader.
Yep.
Yeah, probably the most significant House Speaker since a gentleman by the name of Otis Bowen in terms of Indiana politics. And Brian is a friend very skilled at keeping his caucus together and keeping his eye on large strategic issues for the state of Indiana. Not a career without a misstep. No one has that, but a really remarkable record and been a terrific partner for a number of governors, and almost playing a shadow governor sometimes.
Interesting, yeah. Also need to talk about an issue that is a national issue, certainly with Indianapolis implications, because the NCAA is certainly headquartered here. The Board of Governors at the NCAA really opening the door for compensating student athletes for image and likeness. Aubrey, you are a student athlete, tennis player at Butler.
That's right. So
you've got interesting perspective.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, but there's still a lot to unpack there. I mean, I can remember my my morning starting at 6:30 in the morning and then not getting back to my studies around 11 or 12, right? So that doesn't leave you a lot to work, right? So basically affording basic necessities as a college athlete becomes very challenging. So I think, you know, the modern college athlete has evolved, right? Their needs, their experience have changed, right? They're now more connected to fans. They're now more connected to brands than ever, right? With the digital and media technology. So in a free market, that is creating some economic value that somebody's going to pay for, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, this will help students, right, become, you know, student athletes rather than focusing on surviving in college.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it also points out, I don't know that the NCAA necessarily wanted to do this. I think they were conflicted studying it.
Yep.
It shows the power of California as a market maker and a leader. Very interesting turn of events.
And it will be interesting to watch develop over the course of the coming months. Cam Carter, Melissa Prophet, Aubrey Anand. Thank you both. Thank you three for being here. We'll be right back after this.
Thank you.
Thank you three. Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have for this week's show. Thanks for joining us. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.